Hello, friends. Among one of the best dialogues of Socrates, of Plato, one of which is, in my opinion, the name of the same is Phaedrus. Phaedrus by Plato. It is so. It is a Platonic dialogue. Phaedrus uh, is related to the philosophical dialogue and discussion between Socrates and Phaedrus, a young student of rhetoric. Outside the Athens city walls, when he learns that Phaedrus has just come from hearing Lysias, a famous orator, is interested in hearing Lysias' speech for himself. He persuades Phaedrus, who is carrying a copy of Lysias' speech, to read it aloud. Lysias' speech is addressed to a young man, arguing that it's better to have a sexual relationship with someone who is not in love with you than with someone who is. A primary reason for this, according to Lysias, is that people in love aren't in their right mind and they act under the compulsion of madness rather than according to free choice. Lysias also tries to persuade his listener that a long-term social advantages are greater when a relationship is grounded in friendship rather than passion. When Phaedrus sees that Socrates isn't impressed with Lysias' speech, he prevails upon his friend to deliver his own speech in response. Though he is not enthusiastic about doing so, Socrates agrees and gives a speech parodying Lysias. Like Lysias, Socrates speaks as a man trying to persuade a younger man to sleep with him even though they are not in love. It defines love as a form of madness that occurs when desire overpowers one better judgment. This madness causes lovers to deprive their beloved of good things out of jealousy, even keeping them from philosophy. That source of greatest happiness, love eventually spends itself and fizzles out, leaving both men in a worse condition than they were before. After Socrates finishes his speech and is about to leave, he senses a supernatural nudge warning him that his words have displeased the gods by slandering Eros, the god of love. Socrates starts over with a second speech. He completely changes tactic by arguing that it's wrong to reject the advance of a lover on the ground of lover's madness. When madness is given by the gods, it is praiseworthy thing. The very best madness is love. In defense of his idea, this idea Socrates gives an elaborate explanation of the nature of the soul. It describes the soul metaphorically as winged chariot driven by two horses, one noble and one filled with lowly desire. Souls that can control their horses attain the summit of heaven and glimpse eternal realities. But most are dragged back toward earth by lowly horses. Those who can remember their soul's glimpse of eternal beauty in an earlier existence are constantly oriented heavenward, making average people assume they are mad. Socrates goes on to explain that the philosophically inclined soul will work hard to restrain his bad horse, though self control, and remembrance of heavenly beauty with lots of practice. The lowly horse is eventually subdued, and the lover enjoys a passionate relationship with his beloved. But it's focused on the beauties of philosophy, not on sex. Only this kind of relationship orients someone's soul's heavenward. Thus, there are greater benefit in a relationship with one owns who is in love with you than with someone who isn't. Socrates and Phaedrus then discuss rhetoric and the difference between good and bad speaking. Since Phaedrus admit that Socrates' second speech is superior to Lysis' speech, but he can't explain why, Socrates begins by establishing that rhetoric must be concerned with the truth, not just what appears to be persuasive. Next, explain that if rhetorics is a leading of the soul by means of speech, then it's important for a speaker to understand the nature of the soul. Together, they examine Lysis' speech and discuss Lysis' failure to properly define his subject from the beginning. Socrates explained that precise definition is important and is connected to the philosophical practice of dialectic of clarifying a topic through step by step inquiry. He shows how he carefully divided up the topic of madness in his own speech in over to lead his audience through his argument that love is a desirable form of madness. He also argues for the indispensability of soul to the practice of rhetoric. No one who has merely mastered rhetoric skills can claim to be an expert in art of rhetoric unless he knows how to apply rhetoric remedies to specific souls in specific context. Finally, Socrates and Phaedrus discuss the propriety of writing speech. Writing is a relatively new and ambivalent technology in Socrates' eyes. It promotes the appearance of wisdom while undercutting the reality of it. This is because writing is silent and lifeless, unable to respond to inquiry or challenge. Philosophical dialectic is superior because it's adapted to each specific soul, and though interaction guides that soul towards wisdom. So, this is the Phaedrus by Plato, one of the Platonic dialogue, one of the best in my opinion. As Plato is one of the most important philosophers, as all of you know, who ever lived, and his thoughts has influenced the entire subsequent Western philosophical tradition. He was born into an aristocratic Greek family along with two brothers and a sister. The younger Aristocles was said to have been given his nickname Plato by his wrestling coach. Platoon means broad in Greek. According to tradition, in his youth, Plato wanted to become a playwright, but in his late teens or early 20s, heard Socrates teaching in the marketplace and decided to devote his life to philosophy. Plato continues to study under Socrates until the age of 28 in 399 BC, when the older philosopher was tried and executed for impiety. After this, Plato spent traveling around the Mediterranean before settling down in Athens to write and establish his academy. The predecessors of the modern university, Aristotle became his most famous student. An academy persisted until 1806 BC. Plato also invented the dialogue literary form, which depicts a conversation between one or more characters. Some of his most famous dialogue, he wrote more than 20, include Euthyphro, Apology, Crito, Meno, Phaedo. Symposium, and Republic. So the Plato's day, in those Plato's day, rhetoric was becoming popular in elite Athenian circle, both listening to the speeches and training in specialized schools, such as the Isocrates schools of rhetoric founded shortly before Plato's own academy. The sophist itinerant teacher of rhetoric claimed to be able to impart a comprehensive body of knowledge, a claim which Plato and Socrates noticeably resist throughout Plato's dialogue, including in Phaedrus, where Socrates claimed more than once to know nothing. The ongoing debate over the role of rhetoric in education as an aspect of wisdom is prominent in Phaedrus. So, Phaedrus uh, uh, it is written in 380s, 3 and 70s BC in Athens, Greece, classical Greek period. Genre of this book is it is a Platonic dialogue, setting 418 460 BC outside the city of Athens along the banks of Ilissus River. Climax of this book is Socrates' second speech on love and the soul. Antagonist of this dialogue is Lysias and poor speaker writers in general. So this is Phaedrus by Plato. I hope you will enjoy this philosophical work. Thank you.